Hello and welcome to Bloodsport MMA. Today with another Blood Talk. Today's topic will be Joe Rogan in the UFC. As you all know, or as most of you know, there have been a lot of talks in the last few, I would say months, about canceling Joe Rogan from the commentary booth of the UFC. Joe Rogan, since I think UFC 12, if you watched my video with Mr. Balandi about the random questions, you know it. I think since UFC 12, Joe Rogan is with the UFC. They both really evolved, and the UFC got way bigger. Like UFC is the biggest promotion right now on planet Earth and is making huge numbers. And Joe Rogan also developed in his personal side, like he did the biggest podcast, I think, right now on planet Earth with the Joe Rogan experience and all that. At the beginning, Joe Rogan was at every UFC event. Like he commentated every UFC event he could. And since the pandemic, he said that he will only commentate pay-per-views. So no fight nights anymore, just the events with numbers. So in my opinion, that was a good step, because I think that makes it even more special. Like you have even a bigger pay-per-view feeling, because a pay-per-view should be something special and big. The fight nights should be like the normal events, and the pay-per-view the big ones. That's why you also have in the fight nights normally you have Paul Felder, Brandon Fitzgerald, and Dominic Cruz or Michael Bisping or whoever in the commentary booth. And in the pay-per-views you normally have Jon Anik, who is a stud, man. This guy is just, you can say all you want that he doesn't have fighting experience and all that, but that doesn't matter. He knows how to commentate. And he does the job that the fighters don't do. Like he does the intelligent job, and when everybody's like, oh, he's the one that keeps control and continues to talk. So Jon Anik is always in the pay-per-views. I don't think I ever saw, or I don't think he's too often on fight nights. Then you have Joe Rogan in the pay-per-views, and normally DC. I would like to see DC replaced sometimes or every time with Michael Bisping. Not because I think DC is bad. I just think that Michael Bisping is one of the best commentators in the UFC. Michael Bisping is really a stud when it comes to commentating. Also fighting, of course, but yeah. So, should Joe Rogan be cancelled? And why even? Like, why do they want to cancel him? Is it because they don't like his persona? I have to say, Joe Rogan is a very special type of person. If you watch his podcast, what he thinks, how the world is, and his perspectives on many things, they're a little bit special. I agree with that. But is that a reason to cancel him from the commentary booth? For me, absolutely not. Because you don't have to like somebody personally in their personal opinions to like them when they do their job. Like Bryce Mitchell, perfect example. I don't like his personality in terms of some things that he do with all the hunting and crazy animal stuff. I don't like this. I really dislike it. I still love him as a fighter and as a fighting persona. I love to watch his interviews. I love to watch his fights. Like, he's an amazing fighter. I'm a fan of him. Because you don't have to like every aspect of a person to be a fan of a person. And okay, second thing, if it isn't the personality of Joe Rogan, you can say that he sometimes has some special calls in his fights. I agree. Sometimes he says he's hurt, or oh, the choke is deep even though the choke isn't deep and the fighter comes out, or whatever. You all know that stuff. Like Joe Rogan sometimes talks a little bit too much, and not everything he talks is true. But is that a problem? No, it isn't. Like, Joe Rogan has a voice that for me personally, if I hear the voice of Joe Rogan, I immediately think about a UFC event. Because for me, he and Jon Anik are the voices of the UFC right now. Maybe you have a different opinion, that's okay. But for me, Joe Rogan is the main voice of the UFC. And as soon as I hear Joe Rogan, I know, oh, now I'm watching a nice pay-per-view event. Because he's just on the pay-per-views and not on the fight nights anymore. I know, wow, that's a good pay-per-view event. Oh, that's just Normally they're good, but sometimes they're also not too good. But I know I'm in a pay-per-view event when I hear him. And for me, it gives me a special feeling. And I really like his voice because for me, his voice is connected to the UFC in my head. And of course, every commentator that makes some special calls. But don't you love to hear Joe Rogan scream, "Oh, he's hurt"? Of course, sometimes it's a little bit clowny, but it's like part of the UFC culture, man. Who is a UFC fan and didn't have the laugh about Joe Rogan saying he's hurt? We all, like all the people I know, they somehow love to hear it. Of course, sometimes you think if your favorite fighter fights and he says, "Oh, he's hurt," and he's not even hurt, you think, what the fuck are you talking about, man? But normally you will find it funny or entertaining. There are also drinking games. Every time Joe Rogan says this, you have to drink and you will be drunk as fuck in a few minutes. But Joe Rogan, for me, is a part of the UFC. And he can talk. You can't deny that Joe Rogan is a good talker. Nobody does interviews like Rogan for me. Nobody. Even if you just listen to the Joe Rogan episode, at Joe Rogan Experience. He asks great questions. He does great podcasts. To come back to the UFC, in my opinion, there's nobody even close, maybe Michael Bisping, but nobody that does better post-fight interviews than Joe Rogan. Okay, sometimes he does interviews with persons that shouldn't be interviewed because they're too hurt, and Dana is right when he says he wants to have them straight to the hospital. I'm fine with that. That's a critique you can bring. That's okay. But if he interviews somebody, he does it great. Like all the famous and iconic interviews are with Joe Rogan. Maybe just the Paddy the Baddy with Michael Bisping, but as I said, Michael Bisping is also good. Joe Rogan is a great commentator and a great interviewer. So why wouldn't you have him in the UFC anymore? Like, just because you don't like him personally, just because sometimes he gets on your nerves with the he's hurt or he's talking about NFTs, okay. But he brings some kind of fire to the UFC. That special something for me. For me, he brings a special something to the UFC, to the commentary booth. And I really like to listen to him. Sometimes I have to laugh and think, oh my God, Joe, please do a little bit less DMT with elk meat. But still, I like to listen to him. I like his commentary. He is a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, so you can't say he's like John Anik and doesn't know anything about the sport. He is a great Taekwondo kicker, like or fighter, whatever you want to call it. He's not a fighter because he didn't fight in MMA or whatever, but he has great kicks. Not that that is a criteria to be a UFC commentator, but he somehow knows what he's talking about. For me, that's why that shouldn't even be a conversation about canceling him. Nowadays, everything has to be canceled. Why? Just because you don't like one aspect of a person, you need to cancel this person? Like, just because you don't like my aspect of what I'm talking about right now about Joe Rogan, you have to cancel me? No. You can just disagree, and you can even write in the comments, I disagree because that and that. That's okay. But still, for me, Joe Rogan is a part of the UFC, and he should be a part as long as possible. Like, if he doesn't want to be in there anymore, okay. But as long as he wants to be in there, he should be in there at every pay-per-view event. That's my opinion. So yeah, write your opinion in the comments. Let me know. It will really interest me. I like to talk about this stuff. Also, maybe suggest other topics you want to hear me talk about in the future. And yeah, as always, eat your vegetables.
Eat your vegetables.